Hey, hey.
Hi, everyone.
How's it going? All right. I need to. Mike, I just made you host. You can reassign host or do whatever needed, but I just gave that to you to the
Perfect.
session. And there you go. And I'm jumping around. Give it a few minutes for people to hop in, but all the sessions are now started.
All right. Let me start spotlighting people here. Let's see.
Time to take the jacket off, Rodolfo.
Yeah.
Getting very heated here.
Getting ready.
Must be all these lights from Zoom.
We'll give folks a minute or two to join in here, and then we'll get started.
Mike, did you spotlight yourself?
I did not. I can for now, but I think once the session gets going, I will go off camera. Go off camera, and I'll just be that pesky voice in the nether. So. Yep. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming and joining the session today. We're going to be talking about XR. And so for those of you who haven't figured out yet, XR is kind of the new all-encompassing term for the various realities. Turns out AR, VR, MR was a mouthful. And so, and I whoever came up with XR, I appreciate, because I was tired of saying AR, MR, VR, in whatever order made sense to you. And so, but yeah, so I'm Mike Peterson. I'm at Iowa State University, and I'll be the moderator for today. Please, let's this. We're gonna have this be a very active session. Feel free and raise your hand, and then we can get questions, or just throw your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them that way. And so, yeah, without further ado, let's let our speakers introduce themselves. So, Dr. Morris, we'll start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Mike. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Messina Morris, and I am a biomolecular chemist by training. I'm an assistant professor in the education department at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm also the Metaversity director of our Morehouse in the Metaverse VR project. So we taught the first courses globally in immersive virtual reality across disciplines in history, chemistry, and biology in the spring of 2021. And so I am now the director of that program, and we tripled our growth.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's fantastic. So, all right. So, Dr. Vieira.
Thanks, Mike. I'm Rodolfo Vieira. I'm from Northwestern University. I'm part of the Media Technology Innovation Group, and quite recently we started the Emerging Technologies Lab, where we do a lot of experimentation with XR and all the related fields like photogrammetry, motion capture, and also more recently with generative AI. We have a few special projects going on. We are still in the early adoption phase. We have some production work going on, but we have not been doing this as long as some of the other folks here on the call. Happy to be here.
All right, awesome. And Jeremy, I don't know. I guess I didn't pay attention. Do you have your doctorate or
no? Not a doctorate.
So Mr. Nelson,
that works.
Introduce yourself.
Thanks, Mike. My name's Jeremy Nelson. I'm the Senior Director of XR Media Design and Production at the University of Michigan. And I lead a university-wide XR initiative focused on bringing augmented virtual mixed reality technologies for teaching and learning to support all of our 19 schools and colleges.
All
And
right.
yeah, it's been going about 3.5 years, so pretty excited.
Yeah. I did a pre-call with these folks. You guys are gonna this session is gonna amaze all of you. I was just amazed about what all these individuals are up to. But before we get to that, Mr. Peterson, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Peterson. I am a senior solutions engineer for Mechdyne. Mechdyne focuses on creating large scale virtual reality systems. We are installed in, I think I counted over 70 higher ed institutions that we've done projects in. And we've been doing 3D visualization since 1996 when the company was founded. It was founded originally by a couple of grad students who worked in the Iowa State University Virtual Reality Application Center. And the Navy said, hey, we want a system like that. Where do we get one? And they said, you hire those kids over there to build you one. So that's how our company got started.
Yep. Yeah, it was before it became VRAC, it was iSimt back in the day, way back when. So, all right. Well, again, thanks everyone for joining. What I'd love to do is to have each of you, I'm going to give each of you about five to 6 minutes to tell about some of the things that you have going on at your institution in the XR realm, because I was just, yeah, I have to do this because I was so impressed by everything I heard during our pre-call. So I'm going to let you all brag a little bit. So, so we'll go ahead and reverse the order here. Aaron, tell us about some of the things that Mechdyne's been working on recently, or some of the most, what are you seeing trend wise from a integrator's perspective on XR?
Sure. Well, historically, a lot of our systems were done using projectors. We would have a floor projection and at least a front wall, and sometimes they would incorporate the side walls for a more immersive environment. And then depending upon the budget, it would often have a ceiling and even a rear wall for fully 360 in all dimensions, all the way around you environment. We still do projection caves from time to time. We used to do flat panel 3D systems until the last flat panel manufacturer stopped doing 3D panels. That was Planar. They were the last ones to basically say, hey, Mechdyne, you are literally the only ones buying these. So they stopped making them. And now we are doing a lot of our systems mainly in direct VLED. So we're actually have, I think, 2 or 3 systems in our staging facility right now using direct VLED as the main medium for fully immersion systems. So that's probably the biggest thing that we're seeing is 120 hertz direct VLED systems, and a lot of the special computing and timing issues that go along with that. But that's probably the newest thing on the market.
Awesome. Jeremy, tell us about some of your initiatives and what you've got going on there at the University of Michigan.
Sure. How much time did you say? Okay.
No, 5-6 minutes just to kind of
teasing.
try and give an introduction. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So a lot happening here. This XR initiative started in the fall of 19. There was a lot already happening at Michigan. We had faculty teaching some classes. We had a large, about 30 workstation VR lab created. There was a group already starting to create an XR graduate certificate program. And so they created this program to really explore, is there a there? And so I was brought in into a group called the Center for Academic Innovation here at Michigan. So this is a group that's responsible for creating some educational technology. We have created a lot of the open online courses through Coursera and edX. So we have learning designers, media designers, video studios, a software tools team. And so we started a process where we had some funding. And so we fund faculty projects that want to use these technologies in the classroom. And so I hired 2 full-time developers. We won an Epic Games mega grant to hire students and teach them how to build VR applications with Unreal Engine. And so we did a first round of funding. We funded 8 projects, 4 of them large VR, like projects from scratch. So we built a virtual nuclear reactor that's basically a digital twin of the nuclear reactor we had on campus. And in these projects, we give them some funding and or in-kind support. And so for that project, we funded the faculty to hire some students to work on their end as subject matter experts. And then we worked on the application design, learning design, human, the interactions. And so that project was crazy because these 2 freshmen took photos and diagrams of this 50-some-year-old building and nuclear reactor and built a 3D model of it, and then worked with our team to build the interactions and designs. We built a chemotherapy simulation for nursing students, physics lab, and virtual construction architecture lab, where the faculty teaches how to build with glass, steel, concrete, and wood. And then the students, so they do a lesson on like wood and how you can build with these materials. And then they go into the VR lab and they could do these design experiments in the virtual reality experience, which is really cool. Obviously, that took a lot of time. Those are very time consuming. I'm not someone that thinks everything has to be built here. So we look at ways to scale content and content creation. And so we did another round of funding in 21, where it was focused mostly on interactive 360 video. So we did a lot of work with interactive 360 video and like virtual campus tours, language learning, having difficult conversation, soft skill development. And so we funded 14 more projects, the HoloLens 2 projects, really cool projects with the nursing school, using the HoloLens 2 to do mannequin-based skills training. So the students could walk up, put the headset on, learn how to do a procedure with the mannequin, kind of self-directed. And so pretty diverse, from VR to mixed reality to, VR light, I call the 360 video. And then we've moved into, now we have about 150 headsets we can check out to classes across campus. We just announced last year 10 XR enhanced online courses with Coursera. We just launched the first 3 courses earlier this month. So you can do interactive 360 video in a MOOC on the platform. And then now we're moving forward into virtual production. We're secured an LED volume, and we'll be doing next generation online course content creation in that space.
Yeah, that is dreamy stuff.
Yes.
That I would love to get more of here, but bravo. Rodolfo, your turn to brag a little bit about what you guys are up to.
That's a tough spot after Jeremy, I'll say. But, so we started doing a lot of more work in this space around a year and a half ago. There's a lot of pockets of interest in VR over the years at Northwestern. We had the Night Lab. We did a lot of explorations 4 or 5 years ago, and they went all the way from AR, VR for storytelling and figuring out early versions of how to do photogrammetry and whatnot. More recently, we also helped the medical school evaluate a bunch of applications, one of them being the HoloLens with a holoanatomy, and then they were able to start using it for their curriculum for the medical school programs. So more recently in our group specifically, we started off as a branch of an academic software development team, and we grew to become the Emerging Technologies Lab. So there's a lot of cross-pollination of ideas coming here. A lot of the work was growing staff to be able to operate in these new fields. So we tackled this in a few phases. We did a lot of work with photogrammetry early on. And one of the main reasons for that is that as R1 institution with the amazing special collections content, one of the key things was to really try to bring out some of these elements and these like objects from the collections and make them accessible to an audience that would not otherwise be able to see it. So we started by creating a few positions for PhD students. So we have currently 2 innovators in residence, one from anthropology and one from art history, that are doing these special projects. In one of the cases, we're using the Herskovits collection, which is a part of the Africana collection. And we are creating 3D twins of these statues that were given to Northwestern many years ago. And they're not accessible to the public. You can only consult them with special privileges and whatnot. So the idea here is to start creating exhibits with AR and VR, or XR if you want, Mike, that we can actually showcase all this amazing contents that we have. So moving from photogrammetry of statues, we also looked into joining our team that does video and photography to do 360 videos. And they were very excited about doing building size drone photogrammetry. So this became a little bit of the twin idea, but for buildings, for campus-wide things. So we have a few buildings scanned at this point. So we can do statue size things. We can do like inside a room space and our buildings at that level too. And the other thing we started to figure out was to complement all that and bring these to virtual environments, we also started using motion capture. So now we have full body motion capture with hand tracking and facial recognition too. So we can combine all those two, all those elements into custom experiences. We work with a lot of faculty we started doing a lot of demos to raise awareness of what was possible. And we find early adopters that wanted to start working with this right away. A few interesting cases came from a lot of the folks in the engineering school, where they were already trying to use social VR as a way to have students think about interactions. So we started partnering up with all sorts of projects. And in a way, we have a small lab right now, so we can have cohorts of students coming in to work with us, and we can help them curate ideas or design things or implement solutions as well. Other than that, we also had conversations with institutions on campus, like the Block Museum, who has a lot of special pieces yet again, and try to bring these to a more wide audience, so we can experience things in the place, in location, or it really creates an AR experience that can be parts of maybe a web presentation down the road. So this is a very interesting time for this, because one of the big things happening at these big libraries in these big institutions is something called the big collections. And this is something that's kicking off right now. And a lot of these institutions have amazing special collections. And they're all trying to get them to be exposed in a way so that if you are from this institution, you can access all of it to do research, to do your projects. So this is a way also to get access to materials you might not actually have, but you might want to use it. Yeah, so that's kind of just, we're still early adopters. We have a few projects going on, a lot of ambition, and try to learn from the best in the field too.
Of course, I was muted. That's awesome. That's great stuff. All right, Messina. So many things, including Metaversity, which I'm like fascinated by. So tell us all the amazing things that you've been up to.
Woo, where should I start? How do you get students and faculty members to decide to venture into this XR metaversive learning kind of space? During a pandemic, you offered an immersive virtual reality, and you offer their courses in a way that they're able to actually interact with the instructor on a synchronous learning campus that is a digital twin replica of their college campus. That's how we started in the spring of 2021 with our Metaversity, and we just became Morehouse in the Metaverse maybe July of 2021. I was just ideating with different things, and I was like, "Oh, we could be Morehouse in the Metaverse. I like that." So, contrary to popular belief, we were Morehouse in the Metaverse before Meta changed their name to Meta. So, I guess we all read the same science fiction books, but we initially taught 3 classes in immersive virtual reality. They were my advanced inorganic chemistry lab class. We also taught a first year world history course and a first year experience course called Men's Health, which is nested in our biology department. And we also had another colleague that was in English whose courses weren't slated to teach until the fall, but did a lot of cross-disciplinary lessons with our men's health and our chemistry courses. So we had 4 very daring professors that decided, let's throw caution to the wind and step up and engage our students, because we started to see a number of students dropping out of school or putting their education on hold. And we know for our STEM students who are wanting to matriculate onto medical careers or graduate careers, that they really still need the academic rigor and they need the presence of the instructor. So that was some of the ideas and reasons why we started. What we did see was a magical experience that we didn't necessarily know could exist for our students or us in this world. So I call kind of what we experience opportunistic reality. And the reason why I do that is because working in immersive virtual reality gave not just our students opportunities to imagine who they were in their disciplines with the technological lens, but also gave us as faculty members a different layer of learning to our own scholarship. So it made us think about education different and why it was important to now interact with these students, this generation of students differently. I do know that it was really important to create a full college campus that engaged all of our stakeholders, so alumni, our board of trustees, our administrative offices, but also our students and faculty and staff. So I wanted everyone to have an opportunity. So we started developing experiences outside of our academic courses. And those experiences were things like Meditation Mondays, where students were able to talk about building a mindfulness practice. If you don't know anything about Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, the mission of the college is to develop men with disciplined minds who will lead lives of leadership and service. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to mold these disciplined minds with intention. It was important for our students to understand that their mental health was a part of their health and that they had to make sure that they took care of it. And so doing the mindfulness practice gave them a time to reflect when their own lives and all of our lives in America and globally were uncertain. It was uncertain times, right? No one knew what was going to come of COVID, and we didn't know that we were going to be unable to gather for such a long time. So we were able to actually gather in the metaverse without worrying about 6 feet of space, without worrying about having to put on a mask, without worrying about, how many students were in the classroom space. So that was a wonderful, refreshing way to be in the pandemic. And then once we came back to a fully residential, fully present campus, then our students were able to actually be in, take these experiential experiences across the world. So if they wanted to go to the Great Wall of China, they could go there. If they wanted to go to the pyramids, they could go there. If they wanted to mine minerals on Mars, because I taught advanced and organic chemistry, then they could do that. But we wanted to make sure that our students didn't just use the technology, but that they actually knew how to actually produce experiences with the technology. So besides Meditation Mondays, we do the Metaversity Gala. We have brand ambassadors and students that work with all of our stakeholders in our community to produce that event. And we're on our second year of doing it. We just finished it this past weekend. And also having them do research. So research about culturally appropriate avatars. What does that look like? How you are represented in the space. So we have our Africana Studies professor who is looking at that. Culturally responsive spaces. What does that look like? Where faculty and students become creators of a space so that it could emulate the world that they envision. And then looking onward towards what does the new economy look like? And then how does that boost your own intellectual property? Do you understand your rights in this digital space and digital era? Do you understand how innovation takes place and why that's important? Design thinking, entrepreneurship. And so we have taken the time to cultivate a program that's really rich for students to also participate. One of the most important things is that we saw achievement increase with this technology. So students performed about 11.9% better than they did in face-to-face and online classes. Students also said that overall their VR experience was better than they ever thought it would be. And over 90% of our chemistry students felt like the lessons were more effective and they would have been better chemists if they had been able to visualize molecules before. So we got a lot of good data off of this original pilot study of what our students were doing in this space. And now that we have flipped the classroom in some instances and had students build their own spaces, they're creating the world that they want to see. So that's what's happening in my neighborhood.
Oh man. All great stuff. All great stuff. All right. So my first question for all of y'all is this. For schools that don't, have their haven't put a toe in the water yet into XR, where would you recommend that they get started, right? What how would you recommend they proceed? So anyone can dive in. So
for me, the easiest thing is to use your mobile phone to do AR. So augmented reality is something that you're already probably using. You just don't know that that's what it's called. Because when you get on Amazon and you want to buy a piece of furniture or you want to buy something that is a tray, it'll say, check out how it looks in your room. And you're like, oh, yeah, let me see if this is going to fit. And it's the right dimensions and the right size. And you try to see, oh, that doesn't look that good up against that wall. Well, that's augmented reality, right? And our kids have been using filters and lenses and things on every social media challenge. I'm so tired of seeing butterflies across my timeline. Some of the students, everybody got blue eyes or they got these hearts that are flickering over their faces or whatever. But those filters are a part of what we consider to be augmented reality. You're augmenting the real world, right? You're changing it or emulating, another possibility for what that space could look like. And so it's really accessible with your mobile phone. So you can do that anyway. And if you look up just AR, just AR in like your app store, you will get a plethora of responses. And so that's where I would say start, right? And then I like immersive virtual reality as a classroom tool to manage undergraduate and even K-12 courses, just because the platforms that we use are closed. One of the things that Morehouse did was we partnered with a software development ed tech company. So we work with Victory XR and they do our 3D. We're an undergraduate institution of 2,200 students. Let me let you know that. So we are liberal arts education. We don't have graduate students that are floating around. We don't have teaching assistants and things like that. We have undergraduate students, and that means that they're rolling through in and out of Morehouse within 1 to 5 years, give or take, right? So we're always getting a new crop of students and students that have new interests and new ideas of what they want to do with their lives. So it's really taxing to run a program where you have the same talent that you're able to grow something over time. But by giving all of our students an opportunity to create the worlds that they want to see in immersive virtual reality, it's giving them an opportunity to hone some skill sets that will be much needed in the workplace. So immersive virtual reality, and we use the MetaQuest 2, but the only reason why we use that, because before we used the Pico, which is a 3 degree of freedom headset where you're in a simulated environment by yourself. But when we started using like the MetaQuest 2, the price point is lower, right? More students can afford it. My budget can afford it because we're completely soft money grant funded program. And we don't want to raise the prices of undergraduate education for students across the board. So it's the best headset for us to use. So for me, I say the MetaQuest 2, just because if you want to try it, you could play a whole lot of games.
Yeah.
I was gonna make the comment that a good starting point is, like, if you want to be creative, download either the Unreal Engine editor or the Unity engine and create your environments in something like that, and get familiar with the tools and stuff and be creative. You can do it on your own 2D system, and then eventually, after you get familiar with it and happy with your environments, you can get a headset, a VR headset, and immerse yourself in it. And then that's probably the next step. I generally would not recommend you come to MacDine if you have no history of creating environments in VR, don't come to MechDine and say, hey, we want to buy one of your systems. And let's at least hope that you've had some practice creating some of these environments, and so we can figure out what type of systems for you. We do I've done a lot of very simple systems where maybe it's just a front wall and a floor, or a front wall, a corner and a floor. And it's just that simple environment that when you put your custom content in, it really does, that whole area does come alive. And I've seen some really basic, what I would say very cost-effective systems really come alive by just the content being developed. One of my first projects that I personally worked on was 5 ultra short throw projectors in almost 5 walls of a hexagon. And one of the cool things that they were doing was they were modeling London from when Shakespeare was alive, and modeling the various buildings and putting that together. And when you turned that model on, you really felt like you were in London during Shakespeare's time, and making sure that all the buildings looked accurate. And it was really impressive.
Yep, that's great.
I would echo, everything that's been said already. I would just, another good place to start is 360 video. More people know how to do video production, probably at your institution, than know how to build 3D environments and game engines. Though if you have an architecture department, we've had great success with architecture students. They already build in 3D. They already know spatial reasoning. We've had quite good success there. Yeah, I mean, you can get a camera for like $300-400. You can upload to these different platforms. You can put it on YouTube, Vimeo right away to view it without much interactivity. I would say that one of the key success for us has been finding faculty that are really excited or interested and want to try it. There's some that just like, if I'm not an expert at it, I don't want to even go there or try it. But like finding those faculty champions that would, and then help support them to make it happen.
And that's what makes a very successful program, is having faculty that are champions of this. Unfortunately, I have now been at MechDine for 10 years, and I have seen some of our older systems that have been in place that champion has maybe moved to a different institution, or something happens, and they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a system from us that they don't have that champion anymore. And unfortunately, the system goes unused for a number of reasons. Maybe nobody else knows how to use it. They don't have that champion anymore. And it's awful. It's often very sad when something like that happens. And so at least when we try to work with people, we try to make it so that it's not a single purpose system. We try to make a multi-purpose system so that many different people in different fields can use it, because we want that system to be operational 100% of the time. Because you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with us, we want to make sure that room is utilized 8 hours a day to make sure that you're getting your investment back on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with this. But just 2 other thoughts on this. As Jeremy pointed out, one of the things is to try to find the influencers in your crowd of faculty members, because you don't want to be trying to persuade someone that AR, VR is like this big thing and they want to do it. That's a slippery slope, or like an uphill battle. So we're trying to find folks that already want to be in the space, and maybe they just need a nudge, or maybe they need some technical know-how to get started. That's a huge thing. Another really important thing to get started is try to figure out what are good experiences in VR and what is not a good experience in VR. And a good example for this is early on when VR started to take off, the first person experience, like what do you have a first person camera going on? That was like the first idea, like, oh, it must be great for all these games that do that. But the reality was most of the folks get motion sickness at some level. And a lot of the folks were getting motion sickness from those types of experiences. To counter that, like one of the interesting apps or games that exists right now is like the Beat Saber, which is like a huge entry point for anyone wanting to experience VR. Like hands down, they will have all the mechanics, and also the getting started tutorial from the Oculus. That's like fantastic. It shows you how to dance with a robot. You can interact with objects. So it gives you all the mechanics very quickly. And also to get started with classes, the other thing is like maybe it's a good idea for some folks, but try to bring just one component of your course to VR or AR, as opposed to trying to design your entire course to be part of VR or AR. So that means like maybe one component for your class could be doing one of those tours. As Dr. Marty was talking about, maybe you can take folks to a location-based thing and have an experience there. So those are things that exist off the shelf almost, and you can get started very quickly. From that point on, then you can get involved with content creation. This is still a bit of a sour point because it's hard to find someone who's like an expert in the content creation side of things. So if you don't work with medical folks, you need oversight to make sure that they're rebuilding the heart. That's going to be like anatomically correct heart. Otherwise, you might be teaching things wrong. So this creates a huge challenge. On the less strict fields that I want to say more the artistic sides, we're also seeing a lot of potential with these new tools, the DALL-E, for instance, where you can have a text prompt and it generates an image for you. We are starting to see a crop of applications emerge where you can specify, I want this object, and the AI will create something in 3D for you that you might be able to tweak. I think this is going to be interesting to observe for the next 6 months, a year, to see how refined these 3D models can be generated based on your input. And again, maybe it's not anatomically correct, but it might be artistically good enough for your project, especially if you don't have enough time to do it yourself, or if you don't have the funding to hire a professional 3D modeler to do it for you. Yeah, so this is all great stuff.
I agree with you, Rodolfo, about that. So much of what happens in a particular space has to do with, are you proficient as a 3D modeler? And the good thing is Morehouse has a dual degree engineering program. And so we have students in applied physics or in mathematics as a major that already are doing this. We also have a makerspace where students have been 3D modeling, 3D printing things for quite some time. So the way that I started innovating was to 3D print specialized lab equipment for those who have autism to be able to be included in STEM. So I started out creating fixed interval printed containers, basically these quantitative chemical containers for my students to build a whole a semester long project around, and that got them to use so many different parts of the engineering process, design process, creating technical specification documents. Can you pitch it? Can you come up with a prototype? Can you, come up with something better? And thinking about other people in the world that learn differently than you, that might see the world differently than you, that was really important. So I am an autism mom. I have a son that was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And so my big purpose overall is to make sure that the neurodivergent populations are not left behind in terms of their ability to access quality employment. So I know that, I hope that I will outlive, my son will outlive me, right? You as a parent hope that, right? You don't want to, see yourself on the opposite end of that. But we want to make sure that when we're gone, that they're competent. And so for me, making sure that the unemployment rate, which is between 85 and 90% for those specifically with autism spectrum disorder, is not the same, that they're getting different vocational rehabilitation services that are going to give them the opportunity in a wide array of fields. And that doesn't necessarily mean tech always, but they are usually very technically inclined. So I know my son is, but he's also very linguistically inclined, but then doesn't have much language. So it's very interesting dynamic. But you want to just make sure that they also are getting everything that they need and that we're considering them when it comes to like AI and XR and all these different technologies that are being used so that they're not left behind in this space.
Yeah. So, a lot of conversation here around the content. And one of the things that I've often been saying about XR is, one of the challenges to adoption right now is a lack of content that's readily available. What are you all seeing there as far as content? Are you seeing more quality, university grade, accurate content available out there, or is it still more of a, you all talk about creating your own? Do you still feel like, that's pretty instrumental to being successful right now, is that you've kind of got to create your own content? What's the dynamic there, and what are you seeing? So
create, we need more faculty who are subject matter experts to you don't have to do it. Like, partner with another company that does it, right? Find a way to leverage your ability to grant funds, raise, like, and hire somebody to do it. Like, you have to leverage the skills that you have. And so that's kind of what we did being a small institution, is how can we leverage what we have to get some things done? And so for me, that's what needs to be done. You're going to have to create the content in your discipline, but not actually create it, like have the ideation of what you want, but you're able to think of all the nuance ins and outs of your field. Whereas a software developer or engineer doesn't necessarily know your discipline, but they know how to code. You know what I mean? They know C#. They understand how to build on Unity and Unreal or other platforms, right? So they are aware of the nuances of coding, but they might not know what type of geometry these molecules may be in, right? That's not their field, but I'm the chemist. So being able to speak their language enough or have enough communication back and forth with them until we tweak the model until it is what it's supposed to exist. That's the important conversation that you need to be able to speak the language of what your software engineers are looking for. So taking the free Unity classes, going to Coursera or Udemy or anywhere, you know, and just YouTube. Don't do TikTok. Oh, don't start there. Most of my students started TikTok. But wherever you have to go first, but discern the information that you're getting and make sure that you have some breadth of knowledge of what coders need from you to be able to give you and deliver to you what you need.
And Dr. Morty has mentioned something super interesting, which is the idea of working with software developers. And Mike, if you allow me to extend this a little bit. So in the world of software development, we've been lucky to have something called open source. And a lot of institutions, I think more in some cases are just fluctuate over time, were able to contribute with major projects as open source projects. And I think we saw an explosion of amazing creativity coming out of that. And then maybe some financial companies came out of those things as well. But the idea, extrapolating that idea from software development and talking about 3D models or animations or behaviors, whatever we're going to say they are, I mean, are you guys thinking or feeling that we are about to see something emerge in terms of cross-institutional repositories for those things? And a lot of the open simulators / Second Life folks were doing this back in the day. But the question is, should we all be building the same exact chemistry models, or can we leverage each other? And if so, are there models in place for us to do this? Are there like platforms that we would be able to leverage to avoid the duplication of efforts? Sorry, Mike, I don't know if that was part of.
Oh, hey, these things take a life of their own. They always do, and that's the best part of the HETMA conference. So yeah, let's roll with it.
I think from a higher ed market, I think that will probably take place, that there will probably be a repository. What's funny is literally yesterday I was talking to a corporate client that has a big VR system, and they do highly proprietary things in their system, but they do a lot of design reviews. And so they actually will fully immerse themselves in their product and make sure that everything's are where they need them to be. Are the controls where they need them to be? Are the mirrors where they need them to be? And these are systems that they need to have the scale be 1-to-1. And the main person doing the design review is actually wearing trackable glasses, because the whole system needs to be in reference to where their eyes are. I'm 6'3", and if I'm sitting in the vehicle, my eyes are going to be at a little bit different spot than someone even 5'8" sitting in some of these. And so they need to make sure that all these things are modeled correctly. And so I think you're right that from a higher ed perspective, I think there will be a repository of a lot of these different environments that you guys make widely available. But there's also the on the flip side, on the corporate side, where these are very proprietary things that they have spent, or they hire people to model things for them, and those will definitely not be public.
Let's say this. People say all the time in academia or in education, oh, I just want a cookie cutter. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because you don't want to lose your autonomy. You don't. Like, in the moment that you decide that you're going to just hand it over to, it could be like a cookie cutter package, then what is your value? Not trying to be funny, but a lot of people understand that there's a certain level of value that comes on this food for like 20-something years straight. I'm telling you, there is. And you got to make sure that you are still remaining on the cutting edge and that you're reaching the students that need to be reached and making impact. And I think that sometimes our pride or failing at something when it comes to ways to innovate in the classroom kind of stunt our growth as educators. I can tell you, for me, and I'm a chemist, I work with technical instrumentation all of the time, software packages, different companies, and I was done. I was so burnt out and tired. I was like, you know what? If I start over one more semester teaching the same kind of way, I can't do it. So this kind of gave me like a new, like a rebirth of my career. Oh, I can reimagine what chemistry can be. Oh, I can reimagine what education can be. I can touch other students that possibly weren't hooked up in, in the way that we traditionally taught. So for me, it's going to take someone who puts their pride aside and says, what is my impact on a greater level or scale? And what do I really want to accomplish other than I had conversations with my peers and I got some peer-reviewed publications, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. But what I'm saying is by the time you go through peer review process, technology is outdated. So don't wait on a peer review process just to push yourself forward. Like, it's time for us to be in community with how we're going to collaborate on this to make sure that there is not just a cookie cutter way, but that there's a best practice of excellence in your discipline for the way that we use technology. And that there are rules that apply to how you use it. Even with generative AI, it's like, don't get upset about the fact that it exists. Put your input in so that we know how it really works, and then join in on how to make sure that we maintain the integrity of what AI is supposed to be, how generative AI is supposed to work, and it is not full of so many biases because you just decided to check out. Don't check out, check in. That's my call to action for my colleagues.
These are all great. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Content is the key. And it's really contextual, depending on the discipline, the school, the program. You know, Dr. Morris, you're right. Like, oh yeah, I just want the PowerPoint of VR. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, why? Like, but it's like, oh, well, I wanted to do this and not that, but for these users. So I mean, it's really, there are some commercial tools out there that we're seeing some success with. Nanome is great for proteins and, exploring bonds and chemicals. There's other social VR platforms, or like the Victor XR Engage platform for teaching a specific type of lesson. There's maybe something more bespoke. Like, there aren't many, I don't think there's anybody out there building, the Ford nuclear reactor at the University of Michigan. And we could hire a software company to build it, but like, there's not a market for them to go sell that. So it's this real kind of balance between, what are you trying to use the technology for? We're seeing a lot of interest from like the soft skill development. There's really good platforms out there now to build these, having a difficult conversation, practicing interviewing, practicing, DEI situations where maybe you're not skilled at it, you're not comfortable. And so these, working with avatars, the platforms allow you to generate them yourself and create the experiences in practice. So it just really depends on where you're trying to use this technology to support the teaching.
Yeah, nope, that's great. And that leads to, my last prepared question for the day, and it was about equity, right? Not every student, has the wherewithal to go buy a headset, or, buy a certain bit of software, or have a computer that's, beefy enough to oomph this up. So how do, as we go about introducing these at our universities, what are some tips you might have to make sure that we can do it in a really equitable way?
I think looking at ways that are multimodal, like the mobile phone AR, it's hard to find someone that doesn't have a smartphone these days. look at things that can be accessed in a browser and in a headset. So, I mean, they're just like some people just can't do it. Like they get motion sick, they can't put it on. Their glasses frames are too big, they won't fit in the head. Like they just literally can't do it. And so you need to offer alternatives. So looking at platforms that have a browser or other social VR platforms like Spatial, like you don't need to download anything to your computer. You just need to go in through a browser or a headset.
Mhm.
So kind of keeping those things in mind as you're looking at solutions.
I've heard that there's some statistic that there are certain people that just can't see 3D in immersive systems. Like, I don't know what the actual percentage is. I've heard it up to even 10% of people they just can't see in 3D. But then there are other people that are so finicky to how the 3D looks that, like, probably 8 years ago, we were doing a lot of 30 hertz per eye systems. And people that were used to looking at a 60 hertz per eye system, when they went to a 30 hertz per eye system, it really jarred them. They would see artifacts that they normally wouldn't see in some of those, and just because they're so used to being in some of these environments. And so, yeah, there is a lot of diversity things that are out there. I know that one of the systems I believe that we're working on right now is actually to a historically Black college and university. I don't know how many of those historically Mechdyne has done, but it's definitely one that we're working on right now, and it's a beautiful system, and I'm really excited for it to be installed. And it's got a lot of bells and whistles that we're trying to combine into one system that if it can get pulled off really well, I hope we do a big press release on it. But I know that there are a lot of funding grants out there for systems like this. So I know the Epic Mega Grant was mentioned, and I know that there's a lot of others out there that people are trying to get some of these systems in areas that haven't been able to have access in the past. And so, and I do see that hopefully changing more.
All right. Are there any questions? Feel free, dive in here. You can welcome to, turn on your camera. We'll add you to the spotlight and you can ask your question. Quiet bunch. All right. Well, so as we wrap this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back around and give you all just a minute or two to provide any final thoughts that you might want to leave with the group today. So Musina, we'll start with you.
Okay, so it took me a minute to find the mute button. It's like I'm not moving down. I think that one, we have learned a lot of things throughout the last few years about who we are as a human race. And I think that we should leverage all of the good heartedness that came out of the pandemic when it came to communities coming together, making sure that your neighbor was taken care of just like their children were taken care of, and caring a little bit more about outcomes and like our collective effort. So for me, collaboration is key. Collaboration is the way that I think that we're going to get most things done. I know that our baby boomers are exiting stage left, whether it is into retirement or into another life. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our students, our young people are able to responsibly use technology in a way in their disciplines that's going to move humanity forward, not take us backward, not harm our planet anymore, not harm ourselves anymore, making sure that we're taking care of our mental, physical, emotional health, that students are in tune with who they're supposed to be. And I think all of those things happen in community. Now, whether you are accessing technology to do certain things, make sure that you're doing it responsibly, that you have an ethical and moral lens, that you're looking through these things, and that you consider all of humanity when you're talking about what you're trying to build and what you're trying to get across. That is the goal, right? To leave this world better than we found it. And that's my goal and hope for the way that we use extended reality technology. Because I think that, it's always been a part of the technological world. It's always been a part of every sci-fi fan's dreams, is like where we are now. I know for my whole life it has. But now, where do we go from here? Now that we're here, how do we expand it? How does this metaverse, or if it even will be called that, because we started off with the interweb and now with the internet. So, like, how do we change all of what we're doing and making sure that nobody gets left behind and everyone is able to do the work of the people that are leaving because they become the largest, workforce, and that we're able to maintain the quality of life and that people can rise to the occasion and live good lives collectively. So that's my view.
Fantastic stuff. Making sure we're raising the future for everyone, right? Not leaving anyone behind. That's fantastic. It's fantastic. Rodolfo, any final thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. I really feel like this is not the perfect technology, and I think we're in its phase of adoption. This is the best it has ever been, but it's still not wide adoption as we at some point eventually might get to. But I think nowadays this can already provide tremendous value. I think two things are super important here. One of them is access, getting access to special locations or contents that you would not otherwise be able to do it. And we're talking about anyone in the world. They can have access to even a browser on a computer if they have to. Or if they have a headset, they can experience these special items that were not available before. And trying to create compelling experiences around those things, I think it's going to be a really easy way and compelling way to share knowledge, information for everyone to come. And the second thing is more of just a note for all of us involved in this technology world where privacy is becoming such a big deal. The new devices are amazing in terms of doing tracking of your hands, your body position, your eye gaze, what you're looking at, etc. And because they have such a control over everything you hear and everything you see, it's really important for us to keep an eye on how is this data being collected, who's using it. And as we bring these to universities, it's super important to understand all the privacy concerns that come with that. One study came up recently about this game Beat Saber, and just based on the position of the heads and the hands, they could uniquely identify users. So they don't know your name, they don't know who you are, but they know uniquely if you are this person playing the game. So I think in our roles as educators, technologists, it's really important to keep in mind this idea of privacy. What is the level where, where do we draw the line between what's really needed for this tool versus what's falling off to the other side a little bit?
Yeah. Jeremy.
Thank you, Rodolfo, for pointing that out. That's very critical and important on our mind as protecting student information, student data, and two of the largest headset manufacturers in the world are owned by social media companies. So think about the business needs of those companies and where they're going to lie. But I would say, as you're beginning to explore this and looking through, these are great technologies, they're transformative. Just make sure think about, is it the right modality for what you're trying to achieve? We can do some really cool things, but is it better than traditional teaching methods or video or some other mechanism? Because it's a lot of time and effort, and we see a lot that people don't even use it or it's not helping. So just making sure you evaluate that this is doing something you couldn't do before.
All right. And Aaron.
Well, my comment on the end of this is just so like Mechdyne, our whole big thing is our tagline is enabling discovery. We partner with clients like the rest of the people on the panel to actually create the content that is needed to actually enable discovery. We create the tool that helps them visualize and utilize some of these things, but like we rely on them to actually bring our systems to life. And if you actually go to www.mechdyne.com, we've got plenty of pictures and images of a lot of our systems in use, and you can actually see a lot of the people utilizing them. And so, yeah, Mechdyne alone would not be able to do VR. We need to partner with a lot of these people to help create the content. We do have some people that can do the modeling and 3D content development, but those people we contract those out to clients like these people that like Morris was saying, that we partner with them to actually create the content for them. That's really what their purpose is. Typically, yeah, that's what we need to do. And so I'm really super happy with all the research these guys are doing and some of the programs that they're creating.
All right. If you wouldn't mind, I know Musina looks like you already have, but if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat for everyone to see. So what's the best way to get a hold of you? And yeah, thank you again to this amazing panel. We really do appreciate all your time. And again, I'm just thoroughly impressed by all the things that you've been able to achieve and pull off. And we look forward to seeing where XR goes in the future here. So with that, we're going to wrap up this session, and it's time for happy hour. And so we're going to head back to the main lobby. Erin, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, perfect. No, I just you turned your camera on, so I was just like,
Yep, nope, I just wanted to applaud.
okay, perfect.
Well done, guys.
Thanks everyone, and we'll see you at the happy hour. If
you.
not, thanks for joining us. So
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.